When I first stepped into the house, it whispered my name, soft at first, almost shy, like something ancient testing my reaction. I told myself it was the wind, just the wind, but the walls kept whispering, louder every night, closer every night. And I need you to understand something before this story begins. The house didn't just know my name, it wanted me. Every room, every shadow, every breath inside this estate was already waiting, and once you hear what happened, you'll understand why no one who enters this place ever leaves unchanged.
Chapter 1.
Chapter 1. Don't pretend you didn't hear that. The house greeted her before she even crossed the threshold. Not with the groan of old wood settling, not with the soft hiss of wind sliding under door frames. No, it greeted her with her name. Evelyn. A stretched whisper, thin as spider silk, a sound that didn't belong in daylight. She froze on the front steps, her suitcase handle turning cold beneath her fingers. For a moment she didn't breathe, didn't blink, didn't move. And then, almost mechanically, she exhaled and forced a laugh that sounded nothing like a real one. I told myself it was nothing, she whispered under her breath, saying it like a charm against fear, as if repeating it would make it true. She pushed the door open. The hinges wailed, long and slow, and a stale draft curled past her ankles, carrying the scent of damp stone and forgotten rooms. Dust hovered in the shafts of fading afternoon light. The foyer stretched in front of her, high ceilings, cracked mosaic tiles, and a grand staircase that spiraled upward into a darkness that felt too thick for the hour of day. Evelyn paused again. Her breath released softly in the cold air, and something unsettling happened. The air inhaled back. Not an actual breeze, no movement of curtains, no obvious draft, just a sensation, subtle but undeniable. The house seemed to draw in a breath right after she exhaled, as if mirroring her, as if noticing her. She tightened her grip on the suitcase. I told myself it was nothing. A second time, louder. That was the rule, wasn't it? Repeat a lie until it felt close enough to truth to stand on. People normalize danger when they need a fresh start. Therapists say it all the time, in soft, careful tones. You looked for the good because you needed somewhere to put your hope. She was no different. A gothic estate at the edge of a dying town shouldn't have felt like a new beginning. But the listing price was suspiciously low, and she was too tired, too ready to start over, to question why. Her footsteps echoed as she crossed the foyer. Not just echoed, returned. Like the room waited half a beat before giving her sound back, and when it did, the echo felt a little off, a little delayed, a little too aware. The chandelier above her swayed slightly. Evelyn glanced at it, frowning. No open windows, no drafts, but the crystals trembled faintly, like they were shivering. She rolled her suitcase farther inside. The wheels caught on a broken tile, jarring her forward, and that's when she heard it again. Closer. Behind her. Evelyn. Her name, but not in any voice she recognized, drawn out, careful, pronounced like someone savoring each syllable. She whipped around. No one. Just the open door leading back outside, the world normal and bright and unbothered beyond the threshold. Her pulse thudded painfully. She swallowed and shut the door, more to convince herself she wasn't afraid than for any practical reason. The sound of it closing echoed louder than it should have, bouncing through the empty halls until it faded into the bones of the house. She stood still for a moment, letting the silence settle. But the silence didn't settle. It watched. Slowly, cautiously, she walked deeper into the foyer. Her fingers brushed the wall, and the wallpaper felt strangely warm beneath her touch, like someone had been leaning there just moments before she arrived. Evelyn's breath quickened. The air quickened back. Her hand snapped away, and she whispered again, because she needed to, because the alternative was a panic she couldn't afford. I told myself it was nothing, nothing at all. She crossed to the base of the staircase, where the railing was draped in layers of dust, except for one section, wiped clean, like a hand had recently slid along it. Her stomach tightened. The quiet of the house was not the quiet of emptiness. It was the quiet of listening. She moved room to room, forcing herself through the motions of a new homeowner, checking the cracked parlor windows, testing the flickering lights, opening cabinets that puffed stale air into her face. Every step felt observed, every turn felt anticipated. And each time she paused, each time doubt brushed the back of her mind, the house rewarded her with that same small, mocking trick. Her breath out, the house's breath in. At the far end of the foyer, a narrow hallway extended into a dim corridor. The floorboards looked warped, as if something heavy had been dragged across them repeatedly. The darkness pooled at the end of it like ink, thick enough that the light from the foyer refused to enter. Evelyn stood at its mouth. The air turned colder. Her skin prickled. And then, from the end of that corridor, soft and unmistakable, clear as someone whispering directly into her ear, "Evelyn, you came back." Her blood iced. Came back? She had never been here before. At least, she told herself she hadn't. She clutched the strap of her bag, breath trembling, and the darkness at the end of the hall seemed to tremble with her. A moment passed, another, and then she heard it again. Not a whisper this time. A faint footstep. One step closer.
Chapter 2.
Chapter 2. The house remembers you even if you don't. The corridor stayed silent after that single footstep, too silent, as if the darkness regretted giving itself away. Evelyn stood frozen a moment longer, waiting for another sound, another whisper, any confirmation that she wasn't losing her mind. But nothing came. The silence pressed in like a hand against her mouth. Finally, she forced herself to step back, retreating into the relative light of the foyer. Only then did she realize her hands were shaking. She wiped them on her jeans and told herself it was adrenaline, nothing more. Once again, she repeated the phrase she had leaned on all day, almost defensively. I told myself it was nothing. She wandered into the next room, a parlor lined with high windows coated in grime. The faded curtains fluttered as she passed, though not from any breeze. It felt more like the fabric recoiled from her touch, as if disturbed. Her gaze drifted to the fireplace mantel. A row of picture frames sat there beneath a thick layer of dust, some cracked, some completely shattered. She brushed the surface, revealing faces, old, sepia-toned photographs of men and women dressed in dated clothing. Strangers. All strangers. Except her breath caught. The woman in one of the photos looked painfully familiar. Dark hair pulled back like Evelyn's mother used to wear hers. That same sharp tilt of the eyes, the same tired set of the jaw. It wasn't identical, but it was close enough that something deep in Evelyn's stomach lurched in recognition. She reached for the next frame. Another woman, younger, freckles across her cheeks. She didn't look exactly like Evelyn, but close, too close. A prickling sensation crept along her spine. It felt absurd, impossible, and yet. One after another she wiped the dust from the photos, and one after another each face echoed something about her, a shared shape of the brow, a similar smirk, familiar shadows beneath their eyes. Not identical, not clones, but reflections, distorted through different generations, different lives. Like the house curated them, collected them, remembered them. A whisper slipped unbidden through her mind. The house knew me long before I knew it. Her pulse quickened, The room seemed to contract slightly, the walls leaning forward as though curious to see her reaction. She backed away, a sick churn in her stomach, and forced herself towards the adjacent hallway. But as she stepped through the doorway, a strange wave of familiarity washed over her. Not memory, something deeper, a sensation like stepping into a dream she'd already had. Déjà vu. The wallpaper pattern, the uneven tilt of the floorboards, the specific way the overhead light flickered, once, twice, then stayed dim. She shouldn't know this hallway. She had never been here. She knew that. And yet her body reacted like she was returning somewhere forgotten. Her breath turned shallow, her fingers tingled. A heavy, sinking dread pulled at her chest. She reached the end of the hallway and found a door left slightly ajar. A room waited behind it, dimly lit, dust swirling like soft snow. The moment she crossed the threshold, her heart stopped. She knew this room. She had never seen it, but she knew it, knew the smell of old books piled high on the shelves, knew the way the single window let in a sickly yellow light, even though the sun outside should have been bright, knew the rug's uneven weave beneath her feet. Every detail felt pre-existing, prepared for her, waiting. She pressed a trembling hand to her forehead. This wasn't normal. This wasn't rational. The floor creaked behind her. She spun around. A man stood in the doorway, gaunt, pale, wearing a tattered brown coat. His eyes were sunken, hollow, but not cruel, just tired. He raised a hand in a slow, almost cautious greeting. "Didn't mean to startle you. You must be the new owner." Evelyn didn't speak. Couldn't. The man stepped inside. The floor did not groan under his weight, not once. He continued, "I live next door. Well, next property over. Not many folks move out this way anymore." He glanced around the dusty library with a strange weariness. Didn't think anyone would ever come back. Evelyn's voice finally cracked out. "Back? I've never been here before." The man's expression changed, something tightening in his jaw, something uncertain flickering in his eyes. He took a single step closer. "Are you sure about that?" She swallowed. "Of course I'm sure." He looked past her then, toward the window, as if something outside unnerved him. This house, it has a long memory. His words hung thick in the stale air. "A long memory," he repeated, "longer than any of us, and it doesn't forget the ones it chooses." Evelyn's skin crawled. What's that supposed to mean? He paused, slowly exhaled, and for a moment he seemed genuinely sorry. "You'll see. Soon enough." He stepped back toward the doorway. "Just pay attention to the things that feel familiar. They're never accidents." With that, he left, slipping down the hall with footsteps so soft they barely existed. The room felt colder. The window rattled, and from somewhere deep in the house, muffled but unmistakable, Evelyn heard the faint sound of shuffling, like someone dragging something heavy across the floor. Closer.
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3. When the walls start speaking. Listen. Night settled over the estate like a heavy blanket, thick, unmoving, suffocating. It should have brought silence, but silence did not exist here. Not in this house. Evelyn sat on the edge of the parlor sofa, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, the only lamp flickering with a weak golden glow. The house hadn't made another obvious sound since the neighbor left, but it hadn't relaxed either. She could feel it watching, leaning in close, breathing just beneath the surface of the walls. A soft tick of the grandfather clock echoed through the room. Then another. Then another. each one landing too close to her heartbeat. She tried to steady her breathing. She tried to convince herself nothing was wrong. But the house had other plans. It began with a murmur, so faint she thought she imagined it. A distant muffled hum, like someone speaking underwater or behind a thick door. She lifted her head. The sound came again. Not from the parlor, not from the hallway, but through the walls. Her breath hitched. She leaned forward, listening. The murmur sharpened. Soft syllables, a cadence, a tone. And then, clearer this time, a whisper. Ev. Her body stiffened. The sound stretched, forming her full name, drawn out and intimate. Evelyn. She pressed a hand to her chest. Her heart hammered so loudly she could barely hear anything else. The whisper deepened, stronger now, more certain, and then, unmistakably, the wall beside her pulsed with a soft, hollow thump, like something inside it had knocked. Once. Twice. Her breath stuttered. She reached for her phone with shaking hands and opened the recording app. If she could capture it, if she could prove it, maybe she wouldn't feel so destabilized, so alone with this impossible fear. She held the phone up, finger hovering over the record button. The whisper swelled again. She hit record. The voice rose from behind the wallpaper, slurred as if passing through layers of stone. Full sentences now, still muffled, still distant, but deliberate. Come back, Evelyn. She froze, her entire body prickled with cold, because this time, the voice didn't sound unfamiliar. It sounded like her. Her, but distorted. Her, but older. Her, but exhausted. She didn't dare move. The room felt too small, too tight, too hungry. Finally, the whispers faded. She stopped recording. The silence that followed wasn't relief, it was anticipation. The kind of silence that crouches in the dark, waiting for its next chance. Evelyn swallowed hard and played the audio back. For a moment, there was nothing but faint static and the soft rustling of her own breaths. Then the whisper appeared. Come back, Evelyn. Her name cracked through the speaker, hollow and cold. She replayed it, hands trembling. Again. But on the third playback, she heard something new. Another voice, low, gravelly, buried just beneath her own. It spoke only one phrase, a soft chant woven under the main whisper. You're not imagining this. You're remembering it. Evelyn's blood iced. She hadn't heard that the first time. She was certain of it. Panic surged through her, and she shut off the recording, heart racing. The words clung to her mind like a hook. You're not imagining this. You're remembering it. She rose from the sofa too quickly, stumbling slightly as the room's shadows seemed to tilt. The air felt wrong, thicker than before, almost syrupy. She forced herself towards the doorway, one hand gliding along the wallpaper as she steadied herself. It throbbed beneath her fingertips. A slow inhale like the house was smelling her. She jerked her hand back and hurried down the hallway toward the foyer, trying to outrun the way her own voice had echoed from the walls, trying to outrun the second voice beneath it. But the house didn't let her escape easily. Halfway through the corridor, the whispers returned, this time all around her, woven through the wooden beams. Not loud, not aggressive. Worse. Soft. Coaxing. Like a lullaby sung from inside a locked room. Remember. 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 Her steps faltered. Her breath shook. She reached the stairs, gripping the railing as the chandelier above her rattled faintly. The sound reminded her of dragging bones. Behind her, in the darkness she refused to turn toward, the whispers grew clearer. The same phrase repeated,
over and over. You're not imagining this. You're remembering it. It drilled into her skull, each repetition a needle. She forced herself up the stairs, one shaky step after another. The upper landing greeted her with stale, cold air, as though the house hadn't been disturbed in decades. Yet every shadow leaned toward her. Every corner seemed to breathe. She entered the first bedroom she saw and shut the door behind her, pressing her back to it. The whispers didn't follow inside. The room was still. For a moment. Only a moment. Then, a soft click. She tensed. The lamp on the bedside table flickered on by itself, bathing the room in a dim amber glow. And in that glow, Evelyn saw something on the far wall. Something that hadn't been there before. A message scratched into the wallpaper. Deep, uneven letters. Her eyes widened. It said, "Welcome back."
Chapter 4.
Chapter 4. Never walk the halls after midnight. Midnight arrived quietly. No chime, no mechanical reminder, just a shift, soft, almost imperceptible, like the house was holding its breath. Evelyn sat on the bedroom floor, fixed on the carved words on the wallpaper. Welcome back. They felt carved into her skull, just as deep as they were carved into the wall. The lamp hummed faintly beside her, the only barrier between her and the oppressive dark pressing at the edges of the room. She checked her phone for the time. 12 a.m. Exactly. The air changed. The room seemed to pulse once, like a heart. Evelyn stood slowly. The temperature dropped sharply enough to sting her lungs. She wrapped her arms around herself and listened, really listened to the house. It wasn't silent. No, the silence was gone. There was movement. Not footsteps, not whispers. Something deeper, slower, rhythmic. A long, slow inhale, then a matching exhale. The same pace as her breathing. The same pace as her fear. She backed toward the door, palm pressed to her chest. The house inhaled again when she exhaled. The steady cycle felt deliberate, synchronized, as if it were using her breath as a blueprint. She grabbed her phone, opened the flashlight, and stepped into the hallway. The beam of light stretched farther than it should have, much farther. The hallway was longer. She blinked, disoriented. She knew this corridor. It had been barely 7 steps to the staircase. Now it seemed to run endlessly into darkness, the floorboards rippling faintly as though warped by heat. The wallpaper pattern repeated in a strange looping rhythm. Vine, rose, vine, rose, vine, until the sequence suddenly broke and restarted at the wrong height, as if the walls had shifted while she wasn't looking. She whispered under her breath, "This isn't possible." The house exhaled deeply. A gust of cold air swept against her spine. Doors appeared ahead of her, 3 on each side, where earlier that evening there had been only 2. They were mismatched, like the house couldn't decide what they should look like. One door was too narrow, another was tall enough to scrape the ceiling. One sat crooked in its frame, a black void leaking from the cracks. She took a step backward. The floor groaned under her weight. Somewhere behind her, the staircase shuddered like something immense had leaned against it. She remembered the neighbor's warning. Pay attention to the things that feel familiar. They're never accidents. But nothing here felt familiar now. Nothing felt steady. Her breath trembled. The house inhaled sharply.
She steadied herself against the shifting wallpaper, its texture strangely warm, like living skin. She jerked her hand away, nausea rolling through her. Panic rose in her throat. She tried to return to the bedroom, but when she turned around, the door was gone. Just wallpaper. Endless wallpaper. Her heart pounded. Okay, I'm dreaming. This isn't real. This is just stress. But she knew it wasn't stress. Real-world accounts from haunted locations echoed through her mind. Cases she'd read for comfort, for distraction. Survivors reporting that hallways stretched at night, that time moved differently, that sound folded in on itself. The psychologists called it altered perception under extreme stress, but they never explained why so many victims saw the same distortions, the same stretching corridors, the same breathing walls. She took a shaky breath and began moving forward. The house exhaled as she moved. It was following her pace now. Each step she took, the floorboards beneath her curved slightly, bending as though adjusting to her weight, shaping themselves around her movement. The ceiling above rippled, swelling downward, close enough that she ducked instinctively before returning to its original height. Her flashlight flickered. Once, twice, then steadied, illuminating a door at the far end of the corridor, a door she hadn't seen a moment ago. Its wood was cracked, peeling. A faint glow leaked from beneath it, pulsing gently. Inhale. Exhale. The house's breath. Evelyn approached it, despite every nerve screaming to stop. Her feet felt pulled toward it, as if the air ahead had thickened and was drawing her in. The glow beneath the door brightened, then dimmed, then brightened again in perfect rhythm with her heartbeat. She reached for the knob. It was warm. Too warm. Like someone burning up with fever had been holding it from the other side. She hesitated, breath unsteady. The house inhaled sharply. Her hand turned the knob. The door swung open. Behind it, not a room, not a hallway, a space that shouldn't exist. A stretched expanse of darkness lined with fragments of rooms, floating window frames, staircase sections suspended in midair, doorways that led nowhere. The geometry twisted, folding inward, the walls bent like soft clay. The entire space shivered as if alive. The air smelled of dust, old wood, and something coppery, something unsettlingly like blood. Evelyn staggered back. The darkness shifted. Something moved within it, not toward her, but around her, circling, watching. The flashlight flickered wildly. And then, from deep within that impossible room, a voice emerged. Not a whisper, not muffled, clear, direct, calling her by name. Evelyn, you should not be awake.
Chapter 5.
Chapter 5. The name you hear is never just yours. The words echoed through the impossible room. Evelyn, you should not be awake. For a heartbeat, she couldn't move. The voice wasn't monstrous. It wasn't warped or inhuman. It sounded like her exact tone, her cadence, her breath pattern. Hearing your own voice speak from somewhere else was a uniquely destabilizing horror. It made her knees weaken, as if the floor had tilted, as if the world had slipped a few degrees off balance. She stumbled back, hand clutching the doorframe for support. The darkness inside the distorted chamber rippled, pulled by the airflow of her fear. Her own voice echoed again, softer this time, almost pleading. "Evelyn, stay with me!" A chill sliced down her spine. "No, no, this isn't real." But the house exhaled at her denial, a low, vibrating breath that rustled the peeling wallpaper beside her. She slammed the door shut. It disappeared, vanished into seamless wall. Her heartbeat thundered in her skull as she staggered backward, dizzy with disorientation. The corridor behind her was shorter now, rearranged into its earlier proportions, though she knew what she'd seen, what she'd heard. The house had changed shape again, and the voice was hers. She forced herself down the hall, gripping the railing of the staircase like a lifeline. Each step seemed to steady her, though the air still felt too warm, too aware. Her breathing finally slowed. The house inhaled after her. She reached the main floor, trembling, and leaned against the wall. From here, the foyer looked normal again, dim, dusty, still. But deep within the calm, she sensed something shifting, watching. She closed her eyes for one long breath, and that was when the whisper came again. Not from ahead of her, not from behind her, but just beside her ear. "Evelyn." She flinched violently, turning so fast her neck cracked. And the voice was different now. Not her voice, not the house's, her mother's. Soft, warm, familiar in a way that hit her straight in the chest. Her mother had been gone for years. Cancer, a slow, painful decline that Evelyn still dreamed about. Hearing that voice again, hearing it spoken with such tenderness, was like opening a wound that had barely scarred. Her breath trembled. "No, no, don't do that, don't—" But the house had no mercy. The next whisper rose from beneath the floorboards, curling upward like smoke from a dying fire. "Sweetheart, come here." Her mother again, gentle, inviting.
Her throat tightened with grief, so sudden it felt like choking. The wall seemed to lean in, drinking in her emotional reaction. She felt exposed, stripped open. She backed away, shaking her head over and over. "Stop! Stop it! Stop using her!" The house inhaled, slow, deep, like it enjoyed the taste of her pain. The next voice came from the staircase, light, breathy, familiar in a different way. A laugh, not a whisper this time. A small, bright laugh she hadn't heard since childhood. Her best friend, Lily, dead in a car accident when they were 15. The laughter faded into a soft, fragile voice. "Evie, remember me?" Evelyn's legs almost gave out. Memories slammed into her, sleepovers, whispered secrets, carving their initials into tree bark behind the school. Lily's voice had always been light, carried by joy even when they were both tired or sad. Hearing it now, in this house, twisted something deep inside her. That voice didn't belong here. It didn't belong in the dark. It didn't belong inside these rotten walls. Evelyn pressed her palms to her temples. Her thoughts spiraled into a painful loop. "It knew who I missed," she whispered. Her breath shook. "It knew who I feared." A tear slipped down her cheek. It knew everything. The house exhaled with what felt like satisfaction. It wasn't mocking her. It was savoring her, picking through her memories like pages in a book.
And then the voices overlapped. Her voice, her mother's voice, Lily's voice, all calling her name, all coaxing, all wrong. Her own voice whispered from the ceiling. Her mother's voice murmured from the floor. Lily's voice giggled softly from somewhere just behind her shoulder. Evie, sweetheart, Evelyn, Evie, come back, come home. The chorus built into something warm, too warm, until the air felt feverish against her skin. She stumbled backward, hand searching blindly for the wall. The plaster beneath her palm pulsed just once like a heartbeat. She tore her hand away. The whispers went silent, all at once. The sudden quiet was worse. It pressed into her eardrums, thick and suffocating, like cotton soaked in fear. Her hands shook, her breathing hitched. And then, a single whisper rose from the parlor. Quiet, childlike, horribly familiar. Her own voice, age 7. Evelyn, don't you remember what you did?
Chapter 6.
Chapter 6. Don't follow the voice, no matter how familiar it sounds. The voice of her 7-year-old self lingered in the air like a stain. Evelyn, don't you remember what you did? The parlor door stood open, spilling a faint haze of amber from the failing lamp inside. Evelyn stared at the doorway from across the foyer, unable to move, the ghostly echo of her younger voice looping through her mind. The edges of the house trembled, as though her memory stirred something deep in its walls. A minute passed. Then 2. But the longer she stood still, the deeper the dread burrowed into her chest, because she knew the house wasn't finished. It never stopped after one whisper. The next sound drifted softly from the parlor, not her child voice, not her mother's voice, not Lily's laughter, a completely different voice. A man's voice, low, calm, steady. She didn't recognize it, but it recognized her. Evelyn. The way it said her name was too intimate, spoken with quiet authority, as though he'd known her for years. The sound curled out of the parlor, drifting like smoke. Her breath caught. No, she whispered to herself. Do not follow it. Don't follow the voice. She backed away carefully. 1 step. 2. But the voice changed direction. It shifted from the parlor to the hallway, the long hallway that led toward the west wing of the estate, a section she hadn't explored yet, a section she hadn't wanted to explore. According to the floor plan, the west wing was unfinished, sealed off. No rooms, no hallways, just beams and rotting boards. But the voice spoke again, dripping out from the darkness like liquid. Evelyn. This way. Her heart hammered painfully. It's lying, she whispered. This isn't real. Don't fall for it. But the voice was patient. Too patient. The very familiarity of the tone, calm, composed, gently persuasive, pressed against old emotions she couldn't name. It tugged at her like a memory almost resurfacing. This time, the voice didn't whisper her name. It said something else. Something worse. You left me here. Her stomach plummeted. She stepped backward again, trembling. But the hallway stretched subtly, elongating, its shadows reaching toward her like slow, careful hands. The dark at its far end pulsated faintly, as if lit from behind by a distant, sickly glow. Evelyn swallowed hard. Don't follow the voice, she repeated to herself like a mantra. The house inhaled. The hallway expanded. And the voice whispered, not ahead of her this time, but just behind her ear. Evelyn, please. She spun around instinctively, too quickly, and that instinct betrayed her. Because in the moment her attention shifted, the house shifted with her. The floor beneath her feet tilted just a hair, barely perceptible, but enough to make her stumble forward. Her momentum carried her toward the west wing, toward the voice, toward the dark. Her flashlight flickered in her grip as she caught herself on the wall. The wallpaper felt damp, like it had absorbed decades of other people's fear. The air grew colder as she moved deeper into the hallway. The house exhaled warmly against her neck. Too close, too familiar. The corridor narrowed, squeezing her shoulders. The smell of dust intensified, mixed with rust and something metallic. Iron. Ahead, a faint glimmer of dull red light seeped from a doorway. A doorway she had not opened. A doorway that did not exist on the floor plan. The West Wing had rearranged itself to welcome her, or trap her. She approached slowly, each step sinking slightly into the floorboards. They creaked with a strange, wet sound, as though soaked. The voice hushed. Silence filled the hallway. And then from the glowing doorway, she heard it. A scraping sound. Metal on metal. Slow. Deliberate. Her hand shook as she pushed the heavy door open. Beyond it was a small, narrow room. Bare stone walls, no furniture, no windows. Just a single iron door on the opposite side. Tall, rusted, ominous. Its surface was carved with names. Dozens of them. Some etched deep, some shallow, some violently scratched out. Her flashlight skimmed across the list. Maria Hay, Harriet J., Jonathan R., Elise K., Lily M. Her heart froze. Lily, her childhood friend. The same Lily the house mimicked earlier. But Lily had never been here. Had she? Her breathing quickened. Fog formed in the cold air. Then she saw the next line. A name carved faintly, as if the metal itself resisted finishing it. E-V-E. Her blood iced. The rest of the letters were actively carving themselves, right before her eyes. The metal groaned softly. Thin lines scraped across its surface, forming the next stroke of the L. Evelyn stumbled backward, heart slamming against her ribs. No, 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 stop! But the carving continued. Slow, methodical, final. E-V-E.
She slapped her hand over the half-formed name, desperate to halt whatever was carving it, but the metal underneath pulsed like heartbeat on iron. A whisper crawled up through the floor, sliding into her ears like a needle of ice. "You shouldn't have followed me."
Chapter 7.
Chapter 7. What this house wants is not shelter. It's you. The iron door continued to pulse under Evelyn's trembling hand, the half-carved letters glowing faintly as if heated from the inside. E-V-E-L-Y. Her name hung incomplete yet certain, like the house was savoring the final stroke. She ripped her hand away, stumbling backward. The air in the narrow stone room thickened, tasting metallic, like old blood stirred from long-settled dust. Her breath shook. She turned toward the exit, desperate to escape, but the hallway behind her shifted again, narrowing, the ceiling lowering. The house pushed her forward. Not physically, emotionally, psychologically. It wanted her deeper. She fled toward the far corner of the room where a set of splintered shelves sagged under the weight of old notebooks, the pages yellowed and curling with moisture. Something about them pulled her attention, instinct or warning she couldn't tell. She lifted one carefully. The cover cracked in her hands. The first page was dated 1874. The handwriting, elegant and looping, trembled as though written by someone whose hands could no longer stay steady. The house speaks in breath and shadow. I thought it was loneliness. I was wrong. It has learned my name. Her heart crawled into her throat. She turned the page. It watches while you sleep. It whispers while you wake. It remembers more of my childhood than I do. It is rewriting me. A cold shiver ran beneath her skin. She closed the journal gently and picked up another, its leather cover covered in deep scratches, as though someone had tried to claw it open. This one was newer, maybe mid-1900s. She opened it. The first entry was short, frantic. Someone knocked from inside the walls, not outside, inside. They knew my father's voice exactly. Her fingers tightened around the pages. She flipped ahead. My reflection changed today, only a little, but the eyes weren't mine, not anymore. Her breath hitched. She felt the house inhaling faintly behind her. She forced herself to keep reading. If you hear your name spoken in a voice that feels like memory, run. But if you can't run, don't answer. Don't give it anything. Evelyn swallowed hard. She turned another page. This entry stopped mid-sentence. It knows my... Her hands trembled. The ink trailed off into a jagged line. A splatter marked the bottom corner, dark brown with age. Blood. She set the journal down quickly, wiping her palms on her jeans. Her heartbeat thudded in her ears. The air pressed closer. She reached for a third journal, this one thin, almost fragile. The date read 1998, only a few years before she was born. The first page had a stain across it, like tears or rainwater, or both. I moved here to escape. I thought the quiet would help me heal. Instead, the quiet began speaking. Her breath faltered. She read on. The house is hungry. It doesn't want food. It doesn't want warmth. It wants us, our stories, our memories, our guilt. It wants what makes us real.
Her chest tightened. She turned the page with dread. The next entry was even shorter. Faces in the wallpaper. Not quite mine. Not quite strangers. Her fingers froze. Faces. Like the photos in the parlor, like the reflection she saw that didn't look right, like the faint motion she'd sensed in the patterns of the walls. She turned to the final page. Her blood chilled. If you are reading this, then it knows your name now. The handwriting stopped there. The rest of the page was blank, as if the author never got the chance to write more, or the house didn't let them. Evelyn stepped back, clutching the journal against her chest. Her thoughts spiraled in a looping, nauseating pattern. It wants identity. It feeds on memory. It steals pieces of you until you forget who you were. Her breath stuttered. It knew who I missed. It knew who I feared. It knew everything. The walls inhaled deeply. Behind her, the half-finished name on the iron door glowed brighter. E-V-E-L-Y-N. The final letter finished itself. She stared at it, horror blooming through her. It's marking me, she breathed, like the others. The house exhaled, a heavy, warm sigh that rolled across her skin like breath from something alive. Evelyn lifted her head slowly. The glow from the iron door dimmed. The air shifted. A faint scratching began inside the wall behind the shelves. Something moving. Something edging closer, scraping like fingernails dragging through wood grain. Then, a soft voice seeped from the stone. A woman's voice. Weak, strained, barely audible. "Help me." She froze. The voice came again, clearer. "Please, I can't remember my name." Her stomach dropped. A hand-shaped imprint pushed outward against the stone wall, fingers stretching the surface like rubber. She stumbled back. The journals fell from her arms. The whisper once more. "Don't let it take yours." Then, everything went silent. The imprint faded. The wall went still. The only sound was the house inhaling behind her. And then, a new whisper crawled from the floorboards directly beneath her. "Evelyn, it's your turn."
Chapter 8.
Chapter 8. Once you're in, it won't let you leave. For a long moment, Evelyn stood frozen above the whisper seeping through the floorboards. "Evelyn, it's your turn!" The words were soft, almost affectionate, like a promise pressed against her skin. She backed away, footsteps echoing too loudly in the narrow stone room, her pulse stumbling into a frantic rhythm. She reached the hallway and forced herself to breathe, but each inhale felt thinner, as if the house were stealing a little more of the air each second. She needed to leave. Not the hallway, not the wing, the house. Now. She bolted down the corridor, passing the shifting wallpaper, the peeling corners that fluttered like breathing lungs. The lights overhead flickered sporadically, long flashes of clarity followed by smothering darkness. When she reached the foyer, she didn't pause, didn't think, didn't whisper comfort to herself. She threw the front door open. Cold night air slapped her face. The outside world looked normal. Quiet trees, empty fields, a moonlit sky stretching endlessly beyond the property. She ran, down the porch steps, across the gravel, onto the driveway. Her feet skidded over loose stones, breath clouding in the night. She didn't look back, not once.
The house loomed behind her, but she didn't give it the dignity of eye contact. She reached the end of the driveway, lungs burning, and found herself stepping onto the porch. Her body jerked in confusion. The door was wide open, just as she'd left it. Her footprints trailed across the gravel in the same direction she'd just run, only now they led right back toward her. Her heart lurched. No, I didn't turn around. I didn't. She ran again, this time to the left, toward the tree line. Branches clawed at her arms, leaves snapped beneath her boots. The air smelled clean, natural, normal. She pushed deeper, almost smiling with relief. Then the ground dipped sharply. Her foot fell into empty space. She staggered forward and landed on the front steps. The porch groaned under her weight. The open door yawned before her like a mouth. The house exhaled warmly, pleased. Evelyn swore under her breath. Tears stung her eyes, not from fear, but from a crushing realization that the world itself was bending. She stepped backwards slowly, testing the space around her. The air felt thick, textured, almost viscous, as if reality itself had become glue. She took one more step, and her heel bumped the doorframe. She didn't scream. She didn't panic. She froze. Because panic was exactly what the house fed on. She inhaled shallowly, forcing her mind to steady. "I'm outside," she whispered, though she knew the lie was already unraveling. "I was outside!" Her heart pounded. The house inhaled after her. Her knees nearly buckled. "Stop! Stop copying me!" But the house didn't care about her pleas. It cared about her presence. It cared that she was here, because once she was in, it would not let her leave. She stepped cautiously off the porch again. This time, she watched the world carefully. The sky looked stretched. Moonlight painted the trees with strange angles, making them seem taller than they should be. The driveway appeared longer, but the stones underfoot didn't crunch right. Their sound was too soft, too hollow. As if the world was made of imitation pieces. She ran again, this time slower, controlled, steady breaths, controlled fear. She reached the driveway's fork, a place she hadn't seen before, a path branching toward what looked like old farmland. Relief flared in her chest. A new path, a way out. She sprinted down the fork, gravel spraying behind her. The wind stung her eyes. Adrenaline carried her forward. She reached the end and slammed into a door. Hard. A wooden door. A front door. Of her house. She stumbled backwards, gasping. The porch loomed again, its columns crooked in the moonlight. The house inhaled, mockingly. "No," she whispered. "No, the driveway, this wasn't here, there wasn't any door." Then a new sound drifted toward her. A faint shuffle from inside the foyer. Something moving toward the threshold. Slow, heavy, soft, dragging. She darted to the lawn, across the grass, toward the gate. The wrought iron gate stood open, swinging slightly in the wind. She sprinted toward it, but the closer she got, the darker the night became. Stars blinked out, wind died, even the sound of insects vanished. A void spread behind the gate, swallowing the world. No road, no landscape, just a black expanse stretching infinitely in every direction. She stopped inches from it, chest heaving. Beyond the property line, there was nothing. Not darkness, nothingness. As if the world ended at the fence. She backed away slowly. The void didn't move, didn't shift, didn't whisper. It simply existed, or failed to exist at all. A new realization hit her hard. The house wasn't letting her leave because the outside world wasn't outside anymore. The house was expanding inward, folding space around her like fabric, stitching the world closed. She turned toward the porch just as the front door creaked wider. Something inside the house whispered her name with a low, patient hunger. Evelyn. She stumbled backward, heart hammering. The porch light flickered. The house inhaled, and something stepped into the doorway.
Chapter 8.
Chapter 9. The whisper isn't a warning, it's an invitation. Something stepped into the doorway, not fully visible, not fully formed, a silhouette shaped more by shadow than substance. Evelyn froze where she stood near the gate, breath caught in her throat. The porch light above the figure flickered, casting long, distorted shapes that stretched across the boards like reaching limbs. Then the whisper came again. Not from its mouth, not from the air, from everywhere. Evelyn, come home. The phrase curled around her like warm breath, softening the panic that screamed in her veins. That terrified her more than anything else, how gentle it sounded, as if the house wasn't hunting her, but welcoming her. She staggered away from the void at the gate, slow, trembling steps. The figure didn't move. It didn't need to. The house was already pushing her, shaping the air around her, squeezing her back towards its open mouth. Her heart thrashed in her chest. She whispered to herself, "It didn't want me afraid. It wanted me ready." The truth settled heavily inside her. All the whispers, all the memories, all the voices it had borrowed from her past, they weren't meant to terrify her. Not truly. They were meant to soften her, weaken her, guide her, to bring her home. The front door creaked wider, as if welcoming her return from a long journey. The figure stepped back into the house, melting into the darkness like ink dissolving in water. The house inhaled deeply. Evelyn shivered. She felt the pull, real and terrible, not physical, something deeper, almost biological, like gravity, but emotional. She squeezed her eyes shut. Don't listen. Don't listen. It's not real. But when she opened them, the world had shifted again. The lawn behind her vanished. The trees disappeared. The sky itself bent inward, folding like fabric being drawn tight around a center point. Her knees buckled. The only remaining structure was the house. It stood alone in a void, vast, endless, terrifyingly silent. Then the whisper came again, closer, clearer. Evelyn, come home. This time it sounded like dozens of voices layered together. Her mother, Lily, her childhood self, her own voice, strangers, the journal writers, people long forgotten, all speaking in unison, all urging gently. Not a warning, an invitation. Her throat tightened. She took a step backward, and the void behind her rippled, cold and endless, as if stepping into it would erase her completely. She had only one direction left. Forward. Towards the house. She cursed under her breath and ran, not toward the door, but sideways, aiming for the left corner of the porch. She leapt off the side, hoping the unnatural geometry wouldn't catch her. But the ground beneath her feet reformed into porch steps before she landed. Her boots hit wood, hard,
She gasped. The house exhaled in satisfaction. Evelyn stumbled against the railing, gripping it until splinters dug beneath her fingernails. She forced her gaze toward the windows, black, lifeless squares, reflecting nothing. For a moment, she saw her reflection in one window. Not as she looked now, but older. Hair gray, eyes hollow, expression emptied of memory. A version of her that had lived here for years, perhaps lifetimes. She tore her gaze away, choking back a sob. No, I won't be part of this. I'm not yours. The house's whisper deepened, rolling through the porch boards like thunder. You already are. The front door swung fully open. Warm, amber light spilled out from within, not the sickly glow of the distorted room from earlier, but something comforting, like the hearthlight of an old home welcoming a weary traveler. Her breath shook. She hated that part of her wanted to step into that warmth. It didn't want me afraid. It wanted me ready. The moment she said it, the house hummed approvingly. Fog rose across the porch floor in slow, curling tendrils, reaching toward her ankles like delicate fingers. Inside the doorway, a familiar figure appeared. Her mother, or the house, wearing her mother's face. Her mother smiled gently, eyes soft with the same tenderness she remembered from childhood. It broke her. Tears blurred her vision. This was cruel. This was manipulative. And it was working. The figure extended a hand. Come home, sweetheart. Evelyn trembled. Her heart hurt. Her memories burned. It didn't want me afraid. It wanted me ready. She took one last shaking breath.
Chapter 10.
Chapter 10. If you hear your name tonight, run. The door slammed behind her with the force of a heartbeat. Loud, final, alive. Evelyn spun around, reaching instinctively for the knob, but her hand closed on cold air. The door was gone. In its place stretched a solid expanse of wallpaper, freshly patterned, perfectly seamless, as if no doorway had ever existed. The house inhaled behind her. A long, slow, shaking breath. She turned. The foyer was no longer a foyer. The entire first floor had warped into something unrecognizable. Walls bending inward like ribs, ceiling sagging like stretched skin, the hallway looping in impossible curves. The air smelled of dust, old timber, and something sickly sweet, like rotting flowers. She took one trembling step forward. The floor responded, not creaking, contracting. Wooden boards pulled inward, closing tight around her footprint like a mouth tasting her presence. A distant whisper rose, then another, and another. Different tones, different pitches, all murmuring her name. Evelyn, Evelyn, Evelyn. A chorus of breath and memory. Her pulse hammered in her ears. She stepped backward, but the wall behind her rippled, pulsed, pushing her gently forward again, like a hand between her shoulder blades. The house didn't want her trapped by accident. It wanted her guided. She whispered, voice shaking. It didn't want me afraid. It wanted me ready. The house exhaled, deep, satisfied. Then,
The transformation began. The walls peeled open like splitting plaster, revealing layers of dark wood beneath. The beams groaned as they folded, contracting, forming new pathways and closing old ones. The floor rose and sank in waves, swallowing old hallways whole while forcing new corridors into existence. Door frames twisted, staircases shuddered and shifted direction, corners stretched into chasms only to slam shut seconds later. The house was reshaping itself around her, not randomly, not blindly, intentionally. She backed toward what looked like a familiar parlor doorway, until the molding around it curled into jagged teeth and the entrance snapped shut like a clamping jaw. Her breath stumbled. She ran. Through one hallway, only to find the far end collapsing inward like wet cardboard. She pivoted. Another hall erupted with whispering voices, the wallpaper writhing with faint impressions of faces pressing outward. She stumbled into what used to be the dining room. The table dissolved into ash before her eyes, scattering into the air like smoke. The chandelier above melted, metal dripping upward instead of down, defying gravity in slow, mesmerizing arcs.
She couldn't breathe. She couldn't think. The house whispered louder. Not a chorus now, a command. Come home. Evelyn, come home. Her knees nearly buckled under the weight of it, her vision blurred. In that moment, between breaths, between heartbeats, she understood. The house didn't just want to keep her, it wanted to consume her. Her memories, her guilt, her identity, everything that made her Evelyn. The journals, the carved names, the voices mimicking the dead. Everything had been preparation, and now the house was ready. A sudden crack snapped through the hall like lightning. A section of the wall tore open, revealing an impossible drop, an abyss pulsing with faint reddish light, like a giant throat waiting to swallow her whole. She staggered back. Another section split open on the opposite side, a chasm, a maw, an endless tunnel of writhing shadow. She was being funneled. But then, from the corner of her eye, she saw something the house had missed. An outline. Faint, almost hidden. A door. A real door. Rotting, crooked, half-formed, but not sealed. A mistake. An exit the house forgot to swallow. It flickered like a glitch, as if the house was trying to erase it but hadn't fully succeeded. Evelyn's heart seized with wild hope. She ran. The whispers shrieked behind her, the chorus rising into a panicked, furious pitch. "Evelyn, come home! Come home! Come home!" The floor lunged upward, trying to trip her. Walls folded, trying to funnel her sideways. The ceiling dropped inches above her scalp. The house convulsed with violent hunger. She sprinted harder. The door wavered, blurring at the edges like a mirage, but remained. She reached out. The house screamed. Her fingers brushed the doorknob, cold, real, solid. She threw herself through it. Light exploded around her, violent and blinding. She fell. Not onto wood, but grass. Cold, night air hit her like a slap. She rolled onto her back, gasping as the sky stretched wide and real above her. Stars scattered across a dark, honest sky. For a moment, the world was silent. Then, a soft whisper drifted from the other side of the door, which now hung alone in the middle of the empty lawn, unattached to any structure. One final whisper. Evelyn. Her breath froze. The door dissolved.
The whisper with it. Silence. She lay there trembling, unsure if she was free, or if the house had simply changed its shape again. Hours later, when she finally stood, something else drifted through the night. Soft, distant, a barely there murmur, a whisper, not calling her name, calling someone else's, calling yours.
You've heard every whisper now. You've walked every hallway with me. You understand what this house really was. An intelligence carved from wood, memory, and hunger. It knew my name before I spoke it. It knew my fears before I felt them. And once it chooses you, it follows you, even after you tear yourself free. I left that house, but the truth is simple. It didn't stay behind. Houses like this don't die. They relocate. They wait. They learn new names. So if, tonight, when everything is quiet, you hear a voice say your name from the darkest corner of your room, don't answer. Don't turn toward it. And whatever you do, don't let it think you're listening.